very, very important job today. What we're going to ask you to do is walk over to this wall right here and...
Wait, which wall? Play.
Play.
We're observing them to see how they deal with trial and error. Yeah. Maybe let's see that. Whoa!
Would you say they're having fun?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, that was just unbelievable. Guys, once we're able to make it, so it went from here, and then it dropped right into here.
For a couple of years now, we've been trying to get design thinking into the 6th grade classroom.
Is there any way we could get it to roll like this on into here?
But this year, when David Sutton came into the picture, we realized that to do design thinking effectively, we had to have real-life resources, community resources.
I started the Boulder Center for Interactive Learning at Dawson, BCILD, for 3 principal purposes. The first was to build models for how schools can integrate themselves into their local community. In so doing, schools can think of themselves as part of their local community. The local community can think of schools as integrally part of themselves, and students can think of themselves as part of the real world experience of what's going on outside the school. Dawson School is a really interesting institution in that they do follow a traditional curriculum, but they are very interested in progressive education and also open to ideas and how to enhance the learning experience of each and every child in the institution.
That's exactly what it is. It comes down and comes up, and the kids don't know where it's going to land. They have to think about how big is it. And so one side's much larger than the other.
Design thinking is a very interesting process, and it's a new, fairly new concept in terms of applying it to elementary school and middle school.
For design thinking, you don't just come up with a solution that you think would work. You have to come up with a solution that works for the people you're making it for.
In design thinking, we're often thinking of redesigning what the question is because we're not entirely sure where we start. And that's what's a key feature to learning. Where do we start? What is relevant? And then we work through a process and we don't actually know what the result's going to be.
We actually have to first determine what the problem is. And this is more like real life.
Oh, I have an idea. We could have like a screen that goes under it. So the water would go through and land in like a container underneath it after the bucket tips. But the ball could stay there. It would be like, this screen would be a ramp. Yeah.
This semester, we worked with a local toy company called KODOcreditCorectCUT7.
I knew Chris Hume, and I knew that he had a very interesting company in producing open-ended learning tools for pre-K classrooms.
We started Kodo about 8 years ago when I had a little boy and discovered that there really weren't intriguing toys out there in the consumer market. And I was frustrated with the options that there were. And so I started to make my own toys.
So he began the company. And I think that's a really wonderful story about his commitment to not only his own child, but to serving a lot of children, many children, as many as we can possibly serve.
So I have a product design background, so I have an education in computer science, so programming, and then industrial design, which is product design, was my focus. Industrial design, you can design cars, you can design all sorts of different things, but I focused on products. And so all of a sudden I could make products for their toys.
And I felt what an interesting idea to meld the production that he does with student input in a school.
So I am from the Boulder Center for Interactive Learning.
Okay.
And I've basically set this up with Chris.
Students could actually come and interact with a real business, and in a sense, you have children making toys for children.
We're making prototypes for KODOcreditCorectCUT7, which is a toy company, And one of their main focuses is learning while you're playing.
I think there are two main important parts about the design thinking process. Firstly is that children learn to empathize with the client, the person needing the assistance, the challenge.
So you really have to empathize and experience what the other people are experiencing, so you know what kind of solution they need.
That first step of empathy building was huge.
When Chris came to school, he brought this large Magna board with him, and he showed the children his products and the thinking behind how he got to where he was.
It's really cool.
We're big proponents of helping kids experience real world projects and have real world experiences.
Where's the sixth color?
And so bringing this real world project into the classroom where they're actually designing a product for our existing magnet wall was a great opportunity for the kids to really feel empowered and feel that they're doing something very real.
The way children built empathy for Chris Hume was that they actually played with the manipulative. They heard what he had to say about his experiences with his product and his testing in preschools. And then they themselves went to preschools and saw children playing with this material, and they had visitors coming in of that age group to play with the set that Chris had provided.
And then what the sixth graders did is they took all of that information and they started brainstorming or ideating, as we call it in the design thinking world.
When you put children together in a room with a bunch of adults who know how to facilitate learning, you'll come up with as many answers as there are possible.
So I've seen that whoever fell off had to get a really gradual descent, so it didn't just go down.
We want children to be able to answer a question 5 different ways rather than answering the same question 5 different times.
The next step in the process is for the children to actually get into groups and work collaboratively on an idea which they think might be of benefit to the whole process and to Chris and to his business.
It's got to attach the magnet wall, so there needs to be magnets on it. So there are a lot of restrictions within this project, but we left it open enough for them to experiment and use their imagination to create an accessory.
We want you to come up with something creative. So in a way I could stand up here and say, yes, you can create this, or you can create this, or you can create this. But what I really want to happen is I want you to go create.
The materials they used were things that they brought in from home. So some plastics, some pipes, cardboard material, rolls, anything that they think that they could use to enhance the general idea of what they were doing.
There's like so much amazing stuff. So here's what you might be tempted to do. I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take 10 of this, I'll take this. That's not what you're going to be doing.
And then we can use one of these things?
Well, no, she said to just focus on one thing right now. She said to not get a bunch of things.
Then they would build the actual prototype and test it out to see how viable it is just within the context of a prototype, and then present that idea to Chris as, this is our idea for something new and different that Chris had not currently put onto his materials.
To have a space that's got noise and a little bit of mess and some enthusiastic children who are going to propel their thinking forward by collaborating and working together.
And collaboration is a very important process because you need to respect not only your opinion and have your opinion heard and validated, but you need to do that for other people.
What we like, I think, most as working as a team is how we can improve the idea to make everybody kind of enjoy making it, instead of just like, okay, I'm making this, you're making that, and then like assigning jobs. We all work on one project to add different details.
Difficult problems and difficult ideas really are best solved through a collaborative process. in most instances, and traditional learning doesn't really cater to collaborative work. And as the complexity of the nature of the problems that we're faced as a society increases, so too does the need to collaborate.
What was great to see then was that their ability to take a little bit of somebody's idea and a little bit of somebody else's idea, kind of find a way to modify it, to recreate it, to combine it into what ended up being some really good ideas. Then they had to build this idea. And this is where a lot of the failing happened.
We are making a Rube Goldberg project. No, we're not. Oh. Like when they fail and it doesn't work, they can try again, and when they make it work, like they can learn and like how things work.
That they learn that failure is okay and that it's not like a really bad thing to fail and you don't have to give up when you fail.
Oh, we had a lot of trouble with this little system up here. We were trying to do with like CDs and stuff, and we kind of like got so tired of like failing that we just used a 3D printer and printed out what would work.
I think children are quite scared of failing for themselves, for their teacher, and around their friends in their classroom.
Well, mine are, sorry.
This sort of a process makes them aware that in the real world, failure is the actual part of the process of developing something, whether it's a piece of music, an essay, a product, something that they see, because I think children today really only see final product. The children came up with the ideas for their products themselves. Chris did not want to interfere with their creative process by leading or suggesting where they should go or where he had in mind to go with his product.
Our theme is sound, and so we're attaching our pieces to the board to show how they make sound.
We used a lot of trial and error. So this is like our 10th foot weight and stuff like that.
H2 grow. This is our water wheel, and so these are going to be detachable water wheel pieces. We can have different size boxes and different color boxes.
So there would be an axle between the magnet wall and the water wheel, and so we would use an axle, and then we would be able to, either the wheel would move with the water or with the handle.
It's probably teaching them to communicate, and it's teaching them gravity.
Put that back on. Put that on there. Put that on there.
So the name of our project is Rainbow Road. So what it does is it's supposed to make kids be able to play together and be more social, but also learn more things at the same time. So it's educational, and it helps kids work together more because there's more than one, but right now we're just testing one color.
We're teaching them the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And we're also teaching them textures and how that affects friction.
And we made this, we just used glue and put different amounts of glue on different things. And these are going to be detachable, so multiple kids can play. If 2 kids want to play and they don't want as many ramps, it can be detachable, so there's only 2.
That's how it works.
The kids built an initial prototype, and then we had a series of judges and parents and younger students come through and kind of look at the pros and cons of what they had, and then they built a second prototype. And it's that prototype that they presented to the KODOkids founder, Chris Hume. They took it so seriously. They dressed up, they looked really nice. It was the first thing in the morning. They knew there were actually some reporters there from the Daily Camera and from I think the Longmont Times call. So it was a big deal.
The actual experience with Kodo was real world in the sense that they were involved with an actual businessman in developing a product which potentially could actually go to the market.
All right?
They could be wrong, they could make mistakes, their model could collapse.
Or how might we create a toy that keeps kids playing and also helps them learn?
We will drop a ball down a ramp, and there's going to be a bell hanging right here, and when the ball hits it, it's going to work.
And this group with the different keys that they can move around and create different patterns that create different musical songs, essentially. Very cool.
So in this configuration on our board, the ball starts up here, it goes down this ramp, it hits the back of this trampoline cup, it hits this smaller trampoline, hits the bigger trampoline, and then hits another smaller trampoline, rolls down a ramp, and falls into the cup.
I intended for their projects to be much simpler and singular than they ended up being. And so they presented these very complex projects.
First, the ball rolls through. There's the sound tube, which not only makes the kids happy when it goes through, but when they move it around, it makes sound. That. They need to sometimes change things to make them work how they want it to work. Yay!
I'm curious what you think makes your project so collaborative, what makes them want to work together.
And while we were observing, preschoolers playing with the magnet wall, we realized a lot of them would have multiple people holding stuff while one person dropped the ball to see if it would work, and then they'd magnet it on or whatnot. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work, so if they work together, then they would learn not to give up and keep trying and everything.
The water wheel.
And we're H2 Grow. Growing minds with water.
They have different boxes that they can put on that water wheel that allows the kids to see, okay, more water in the bigger box is heavier than less water in the smaller box. It allows them to experiment with size, that volume of water, and then also different materials that go with that. That's really exciting.
Our tagline is play together, learn together, and we got that because our how might we was how might we get kids to play together, but also learn it together at the same time. So our tagline is play together, learn together, because if you play together, you can also learn.
So the steps for it is it goes into the tube, and then there's these little levers.
This one I think is very unique because you've got a whole system that's actually coming off the wall, and then when we met before, there were parts and pieces that could get connected together with little levers that move the ball in different areas. That concept in general, I think is really, it's like bringing all the loose parts and pieces on the wall, but together in a single unit.
I was definitely surprised by the things they came up with. Ingenuity of sixth graders is pretty spectacular, and their imagination around just what can happen, and what physics allow to have happen on the magnet wall.
You made a comment about randomness. Teaches about randomness, which I think is a very interesting thing because really all of these parts and pieces are kind of random if they're taken off individually. So how do you think that your particular set allows kids to take that randomness and make it into a structure for them to learn with?
Well, they learn about all the different angles and configurations, and then they know that because of that randomness, they start to see that if we put this over here, it's not going to make it far enough.
Ours is random because they can change up the xylophone and change up the drums, so it can make a different pattern of music every time.
So you're kind of taking all these random parts and allowing the child to organize them to bring structure and maybe make music or to have a series of physical events.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Essentially, children learn here how to collaborate with their hands, and which is really important at this age of the child because they're not really verbal collaborators yet. But if you learn to collaborate with your hands, it's not a big jump to move from hands to sitting in a group and collaborating as you did. And I think that's a really important skill that they can really learn early in their lives.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice, really good.
This was a great opportunity for Kodo to reach out and have interaction with an older group of children, and to get that input from those children I think is valuable, because it's kind of the next level of thinking in childhood. And it's seeing their social interactions with each other and with me and with the panel was very interesting to think about. Okay, what should we be developing in younger children to then be better at presenting and thinking through problems and all those things when they get to 6th grade.
I enjoy building the most because you get to create prototypes that are fun, and the kids get to learn, and you get to really think up, and there wasn't really many limits for what we could do, so they're really like variated prototypes.
Just from a week ago to here, they've taken these like very loose concepts and really brought a lot of meaning to them, which is, yeah, it's great.
And I think what got them that far was the fact that empathy building piece where they really watched kindergarten. That really drove the production.
Well, that was just unbelievable.
When they got back in their groups following that, they're like, "What? But Mr. Hume said."
Oh, yeah.
And here's what Mr. Hume liked. I mean, they really, that resonated with them. They really got it. They heard you.
Mm-hmm. And over time, that's become so much more cohesive. In the beginning, they were using a lot of the terms, but now, several weeks now, it's clear that they understand the application of those terms.
I think what was surprising for me in this process was that children were very creative. I really thought that they had the ideas and they were just waiting for an opportunity to express themselves. I thought they worked very well together, because I always imagine that children who don't know how to collaborate that much in an official sort of a setting where there's certainly a time pressure, it's a novel concept. It's just a different way of expressing themselves, and design thinking is a complicated process, and the way they handled themselves in a collaborative effort with this project really impressed me. Intelligent, and they are very observant, and they have an intuitive ability to be creative and add to the lives of those around them. And I think that this was a perfect opportunity for them to actually show their creativity in a physical manifestation.